Many of us are expecting big things being accomplished by Tesla in 2024. I'm not guaranteeing the stock per se will skyrocket, but clearly, if Tesla continues to progress in their milestones in business, strategy, and product, the stock will follow. Today, let's hear from Jeff Lutz and get his take on vehicle production, Cybertruck, FSD, the compact car, and some other major things he's predicting will happen. Jeff is here with us, and he's an ex-supply chain executive C-level at many Fortune 100 companies like Google, Lenovo, and Motorola. He's currently running his own consulting firm. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, great to be with you, Herbert.
So this is something I've been wanting to do. It's like the first week of January, and you have some forecasts and predictions. You have a little bit different thinking than what I've been hearing other people have. You've created a list, so I'm going to go ahead and flash that list, and then we're going to go through it one at a time, just so folks see this, that we've got 6 items here we're going to cover. This is your target for the year, FSD, Cybertruck, 25 car, compact car, and others. So let's go through that first. Tell me about your first point there, which is what is your goal for in what you're thinking for the year inventory sales?
Yeah, I think Tesla I think everybody's interested in volume, and Tesla, I believe, will guide to that volume on the Q1 earnings call, January 24th, a couple weeks from now. And if you look at last year, they finished last year at 1.8 million units. And if you look at just what's going on with EV adoption, you're going to see a jump. It looks like the U.S. market is stabilized. It looks like some of the early estimates for total auto shipments are at 16 million units in 2024. And if EV adoption grows to 11 or 12%, which is actually a pretty conservative growth rate for EV adoption and where a lot of analysts have it, you're getting closer to 1.92 million EVs, and Tesla was already ending the year at 55% share of EVs in the U.S. And I don't like the EV share metric, but it's important in this context. If we're adding 500,000 or 600,000 EVs to the mix in the U.S., Tesla's the only OEM that's actually been adding capacity and not deprecating it like Ford has been, GM has been, and so forth. Because again, the more EVs they ship, the more money they lose. So if Tesla looks like they can get a couple 100,000 units potentially in North America, and you're going to get that obviously through the Model Y, the new Model 3, the current Model 3, S and X, and Cybertruck. So there's a number of different areas where I think they can get volume in North America. I think China's set up to continue to do well. I think this return from COVID was slow. I think the leadership in China realizes that. I think they're going to stimulate the economy. Again, none of this is investment advice. This is just how I see it. And I just see that EV adoption curve continuing to grow. And customers in China love their Teslas. So, and there's many other competitors in China. It's a very competitive environment, but I think they'll continue to grow there. In Europe, Europe can be a little bit of a mixed bag, but I think they'll continue to do well in Europe. So again, I have a kind of a low side of 2.2 million units, which is pretty modest growth from the prior year. I kind of view this as a transition as well, ramping up the Cybertruck, and then before the 25K vehicle, I kind of view this as a transition year. But if things go well, the EV incentive point of sale in the US, and that if people really start capitalizing on that, which is a huge amount of savings both at the federal and state level. I have the upper end of the range of 2.4, and I have a bull case of going up to 2.5. I think that entire range is in play, for the reasons I've provided.
Yeah, I think that's fairly fair. And I have a feeling this will be the exact same range that Tesla will announce in their earnings call that's coming up in a couple of weeks here, 3 weeks. 2.2 to 2.4 seems like fairly safe, but I like that you have a bull and you explain the reasons and you're pretty detailed about it. So this is, I think, going to be just right on target as well. I do hope that Larry Goldberg is pretty strong belief that it will be 2.4. So it's just a matter of where are you on that range? That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing you talk about is FSD. This is something you have been talking about, a first license deal, something that you've been hammering home that you're expecting to happen. Of course, we're now hearing that FSD is going to be announced quite quite soon. This is rumors, but very strong rumors that FSD in China is going to be released soon. And we're seeing kind of code, we're seeing communication about FSD being available in Europe as well. Tell me about this prediction here.
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to this. I think first, Tesla is focused internally and they want to expand the availability of FSD globally. There's their customers, there's millions of cars in these regions, and this has been a capability that Tesla has been promising, and it's been running in North America for a couple of years and being refined and improved. And Tesla, they want to expand globally, and I think they're going to be able to expand globally. And this is, going to be, a decent driver of income for the company as well as FSD adoption increases, with the availability of this software in those two regions. So I think Tesla wants to focus internally and make sure they've got it, rock solid and running in these regions. And then I believe that they will announce a partnership with another OEM who would basically be purchasing the engineering support, the hardware capability in the car, the dojo network infrastructure, access for training, and that whole, because Tesla basically serves the end-to-end piece to consumers, and they themselves are an auto OEM. So who better to work with to get your if you don't have a solution, you're an auto OEM, and you don't have a viable path to get this done, who better to partner with? It looks like Tesla has the only economically right now scalable solution out there. That's arguable, but if you really start double clicking into what's happening, we saw what's happening with Cruise. Nobody realized that there was a lot of manual intervention of people literally, getting the cars out of jams and so forth, remote driving the vehicles. Nobody understood the economics until it was split out and reported that this is a money loser, the way that it was architected at Cruise. Other places have not split out their economics, but there's reports of some of the robotaxis in China as well of very mixed bag in terms of economic results. But in general, they're not scaled and they're not in a good place. And the question is when they reach scale, where are they going to really be economically? So I believe Tesla's got the economics down from a hardware and software and network infrastructure perspective to really do well. So I believe that they will announce at least one FSD license partner, because there's going to be about 2 to 3 years of lead time from that partner starting to work with Tesla to them getting their vehicle outfitted and getting it ready and getting it into production with FSD.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, we have been hearing a lot of kind of rumors and, just so much smoke that FSD is going to be released in Europe and China. And if they do, right, that is a significant expansion. Right now, full self-driving is only available in Canada and US, but it's going to go to Europe, China, in fact, even Australia. And this just shows confidence in this technology, not just in ADAS, but on its way to robotaxi. If this first license deal happens, and this is going to be, it's going to be the thing that's going to just skyrocket the stock, as in my perspective. I mean, it's just a partnership. As we have seen with Supercharger, once you see one happen, you know that more than one will join in the future. It opens the floodgates, but it again shows confidence that other OEMs are seeing Tesla being the viable partner, like you said. So this is the one that I'm most excited about, like you have been, and I hope you're right, and I hope it happens this year. But this is all looking really good because so far this is what we're seeing.
Yeah, one more comment is the the economics tied up in FSD are significant. Tesla has those three components. They've got the engineering resources, they have the training data. They have more training data available than really the sum of everybody that's actually working on this. And then they've got the network infrastructure piece being put in place throughout this year. They've got to hit those numbers. I mean, there's a lot of contingencies here, but they've got to ramp up that network infrastructure capacity with their own chip, preferably. I know they can continue to use NVIDIA as well, and probably swap to their new network infrastructure card. But Tesla has a lot of execution to do here, but this looks like it's on a path. Again, this is an investment advice, but the economics locked up here are fairly significant, and the value to other OEMs is very significant, and therefore the value back to Tesla, would be it also gives them more leverage in the industry as well, as they're ramping new versions of the silicon, as they're ramping their own network infrastructure to get partners on board, as well as the Tesla fleet itself.
Okay, let's keep moving forward. I think that is looking like it's going to happen. We'll see. So then you talk about the Cybertruck. Yeah, 70 to 80,000. I think that that's pretty well in line with what the analysts are saying, but it's lower than what most retail investors are saying, I believe. But it will be the number one electric vehicle truck in year one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe, and kind of using my background both in supply chain and in quality, I believe Tesla's done a controlled introduction, controlled rollout of the Cybertruck, and that's very smart. Okay, you have a vehicle where they poured in all kinds of new technology, steer by wire, 48 volt, four-wheel steering, which is new to them, and of course everything they're doing with stainless steel and the fabrication of it itself, and all the and the castings and so forth. There's so much new technology in this vehicle, and just the physics. They've changed the physics of what a vehicle and what an EV are. They've changed the construction method of what that is, and of course with this new electrical architecture, there's going to be bugs. There's going to be conditions that can really only be found when there's a controlled lot of these and there's more hours on the road. You noticed, near the end of last year that there were, more and more we saw all these Cybertrucks in the road. Like, what's happening? It must be getting close. Well, of course it's getting close. But when you're testing internal to the company, it's hard to, interpolate like what would be the performance of this when 100,000 people concurrently are driving it, and what will break first. What are the top issues going to be? So they've got to get after these issues. There's been a couple of issues reported, 2 or 3 issues. Happens with every product, by the way, happens with every new product introduction. But I believe that their approach was very smart. Lots of new technology, do a slower, controlled introduction. They said like, hey, look, we're limited for a number of reasons. It's going to be, we're digging our own grave, blah, blah, blah. But the benefits of this controlled introduction is they can go and they can fix these issues, so that the first 100 had these problems, the next 500 will have another set of issues they got to work with. But progressively, when we start talking about the volumes of 70 to 80,000 this year, they're going to be able to get a lot of different solutions and fixes in it. So I believe I brought that example up because I believe they started slow, but I believe they will be able to ramp up. And the way the truck is designed, it's in a way where as soon as they work through both of these problems we see and the problems that we don't see, they're probably going on in the factory. Once they knock those off, I think it's going to run pretty well in the factory. So yeah, I've got a pretty conservative 70 to 80,000 unit view, because I think they're still going to be conservative in the rollout in this first quarter. But then you've got to look at, okay, if they're going to be conservative this quarter, is from someone who's done a lot of these ramp plans, what's the second, the third, the fourth? What can they really be the second, third, and fourth? You don't normally double, every quarter, for example. And so you've got to like pin it on a number and then see where you believe that's going to go. And that's where I kind of got to the 70 to 80K range. By the way, I think that'll make them the highest selling EV truck in North America, and in year one, which is very good for a vehicle with all of this newness inside of it. Remember, the F-150 was built off of the existing F-150 platform, and they've not ramped to these numbers yet. So this will be a very good year one for Tesla if they get to this.
Okay. Yeah. I like the way you explained that. Yeah. That in order for them to actually get to these numbers, you can't expect them to double and double and double. So if they start slow, then it's going to be a little bit lower for this year, and then it will double quickly at the final quarter, maybe. And that's really I think some people are anticipating the last few months might actually be crazy numbers. But I like what you've said here. That makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't make a difference, really, if it's 80,000 or 100,000. But this is a much more logical explanation what we might see. Okay, so this one here, you said that this compact car, you're saying design lock in Q1 2024. That's pretty bold to say that design lock will happen now.
Mhm.
The ramp will be the first half of next year, but you don't actually say if there's going to be a reveal and when is the actual sales. I mean, you say ramp, but when is the actual sale?
Yeah. Yeah. At some point between those two data points, there'll be a reveal, probably much closer to the ramp itself. So
So you still believe
design
there's going
lock,
to be a reveal? You still believe there will
yeah,
be a
I
reveal?
believe of course they're going to reveal. This is going to be one of the most important products Tesla. It will be the most important product they've ever done when they reveal it. Um, so the 25K car design lock is a very important term. You heard Elon say that last year in Q2, I believe May of 2020. Sorry, I want to say last year, May of 2022. He said that the Cybertruck was design locked, and it took them about a little more than a year to get it into production. Remember, production isn't one day. It is not one day. Your electrical suppliers are starting on a certain period of time, which is way in advance. Your mechanical suppliers are starting way in advance, and then eventually you start general assembly in the factory. So, so I believe that they have to design lock this vehicle in the first quarter of this year. Maybe it's plus or minus a month, maybe it's April, whatever. But I believe they've got a design lock. They got to release the tooling so that they can, do greater quantity prototypes, and they've got to allow suppliers time to build their tooling and to get ready for an eventual ramp up, and that's usually this period of time. So that's why I believe that they've got to actually design lock means you've made all the big decisions about features, functionality, form. Franz's team has made all the decisions, and with Lars' team about where things go, how they fit together inside of the vehicle. What are the major manufacturing design elements that are being done for the unbox process? Like, you've done the big blocks for design lock, and you've got a pretty good level of detail about how this thing is going to go together. That's what design lock is. It's not every single part is locked and you can't change it anymore. It's more of like, you can release the tooling on this, and then all the changes are going to be smaller modifications from here on out. So that's why I believe design lock is important, and that would lead to a ramp up in the first half of 2025. And I think at some point between there, they'll do a reveal closer to the ramp. And I believe this will allow analysts to really start penciling in their numbers. And this has to be a very unique ramp up. This can't be, they can't reveal the car and then say you can order it and then just it trickles out. They've got to have tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 of these vehicles built and ready to go. So the order queue isn't many, many months long for a vehicle at this price tier. So I think this vehicle is very exciting for Tesla, and I'll get to it in a further point. But I believe this really puts the company in a different tier in terms of its leverage and what it does in building products for consumers. I think it puts it in just it really elevates the company. I'll talk more about that in a minute.
I think that's such a great point that you've just been making. You've been repeating this a few times, that this particular vehicle, because it's the compact car, because it's supposed to be mass market, they don't want to just roll it out like they did with the Cybertruck or the Model S or the Roadster, trickling it out. It's got to be done well. But there's 2 points that I need to think about. One is, in one hand, it's supposed to be utilitarian. It's going to be smaller. It's going to be, like a lot of parts removed per se. So it should be simpler to create. On the other hand, it's the unbox model, which is a brand new production line. A way to do things is completely new that they've not done before. So the question, I'm going to be interviewing Sandy Monroe in a couple of weeks here. And one of the questions I've been asking is, to what extent do you think that the Cybertruck, the things that they learned inside the car, would be reused for the compact car? If it's very little crossover, then this is the part where I get to look, okay, this might take a lot longer than we think about, because the unbox model is a brand new, production line. But if there's a lot of shared, parts, shared modules, shared, like some people are saying that the Cybertruck is actually partially unboxed already, this could actually happen sooner. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, the great thing about Cybertruck is it allowed Tesla to introduce a lot of new technology that they will carry forward into future vehicles, but do it at a low velocity. So again, they can detect these issues, they can resolve them quickly, and not have it spread, to a bunch of consumers where there's recalls and so forth. So introducing the 48 volt architecture, I believe that's going to be copied and brought forth. And I think a number of different aspects, potentially steer by wire, anything that allows them to reduce the 25K car. The first priority is to eliminate components and unneeded functionality without really disturbing the consumer too much. But in general, you start with the things that they can't see or they can't realize, and do they care if there's one casting or two? No, they just want to get in the car. They want the build quality to be good. They want the ride quality to be good. So Tesla's first goal is for part elimination. The way you're going to get down to $17,000 or $18,000 of COGS is through part elimination. The next thing is going to be through part simplification. How do you get the process times down? How do you get the materials used changed so they're easier to deal with? How do you get process steps combined? Maybe parts aren't combined, but process steps are combined. So you look at processes, you look at parts, and you're really trying to simplify them. So first elimination, then simplification, and then finally you're looking at, all right, I'm going to be building a vehicle that is going to be the sum volume of every vehicle I have in production today, and maybe double it, in a couple of years from now. So what does that mean to you, supply base? Well, here's where I want you to be on day one. Here's where I want you to be after a year. Here's where I want you to be in maybe 2 years. And they're going to put these goals on suppliers. If I was in this position in supply chain, you got to have a win-win relationship. You have to give them the ability to win and grow, especially the smaller, the scrappier foot ones. But point is you've got to put targets on them, and they have to come to the party with a plan to get to those targets or exceed them, or they're not going to be at that party and someone else is going to be wedging themselves up. Because now you're Tesla, and you went from disruptive entrant trying to get suppliers to even notice you to now you're already building the number one car in the world with the Model Y. So any supplier that wins award with Tesla on the Model Y, they've got the number one part volume. They're literally jumping for joy. And now they're going to be scrapping and trying to get business on this compact vehicle. So to answer your question, I think their priorities are going to be around pulling down the technology that makes sense, the ones I described from Cybertruck. So I think there is going to be reuse, part elimination, part simplification, process simplification, and then leverage the hell out of your supply base to hit these targets.
Okay, well, the compact car is a big deal. It's quite exciting to realize and to step up and think that here we are. You're saying design lock Q1. I think this makes a lot of sense. Ramp already by next year. We are here. This is a big, big deal that's going to just change Tesla and the world pretty well. So it's a big one. The next point you made here is that you've been talking about this on the first quarter earnings call. You want to hear Elon and the executives change the tone, right? And, there's the interest rate picture is becoming less dire. You want to hear them talking about capital investment, that they're going to start and restart that. They're going to start hiring more. Tell me more about that.
Well, here's the thing. If the tone doesn't change, their actions have changed. And what Tesla normally does, Tesla let out with their actions I think in June of 2022, they were one of the first tech companies or first big companies to do layoffs. They were doing involuntary severance in June. Nobody was doing that. And Tesla let out. And then all of a sudden you saw the year of efficiency from Meta, and you saw the other companies start tightening the belt. And then you saw GM and Ford over the last year tightening the belt. Well, what Tesla did is they let out with their actions, and they were reducing headcount. You saw them consolidate their requisitions and eliminate a bunch of them that were posted. And then you saw them slowing down, announced or unannounced. By the way, I've said this multiple times. I don't think Tesla has to announce everything they're doing with every factory to the public. It's their capital, what they want to do. They just have to. They can talk about their capital plan on earnings calls, but they don't have to talk about every time they make a priority change with a factory. But getting back to it, Tesla led out with resource reductions, and they slowed down factory expansion. And then you heard, gloomy Elon on the calls for a couple of quarters in a row. Rates were going up at a higher pace than 4 decades, 11 rate increases in a row, 475 basis point rate increases in a row. Of course, he's going to be like that. He's seeing what's happening with his suppliers. He's seeing what's happening with his sellout velocity. He had to make the pricing moves. So that matched all that kind of aligned and matched up. Now, what have you seen over the last couple of months? The factories have been restarted. The expansion efforts have been restarted in multiple factories. You're seeing the India, the India piece heat up. If he goes out to India, he's going out for one reason, which is to finalize the deal and have a photo op with Modi. So you see Mexico being restarted. You see the other expansions underway. So they've kicked all that off. And then Alexandra, Tesla Boomer Mommer, does a great job of kind of highlighting all these new postings from Tesla. Look at their hire. I mean, they've expanded the bot team dramatically. They're expanding. It's not just a development team. There's also a production effort being hired. And they're hiring for the other facilities. They're hiring for FSD ADAS drivers globally. Hiring is expanding. They're even hiring for roles that I would call non-critical if I were a C-level exec at the company. That's a sign that tells you that they're back in expansionary mode. What they're doing with factories, what they're doing with requisitions. So why I bring up point number 5 is I'm expecting a less gloomy Elon, either more of a nominal view of the world or potentially more bullish, to kind of set things up of like, this is why we're here and this is what we're going to do for this year, because his actions are opening up requisitions and restarting all the factory expansion. His actions are capital expansion or expansionary. So I would expect his tone to match. That's why I brought that point up.
Yeah, so he's a gloomy Elon. I was going to say that it's unlikely he's going to be this optimistic Elon because he's just a PTSD and he's just not ready to say, the market's going to flip, economy's going to be really great. And I was expecting a less gloomy Elon, except he then announced that right after the earnings call, he's going to do a kind of this very exciting, here's what plans are for the future of Tesla. And so we'll see if he will take advantage of that opportunity to say, thank you, team. What a great thing we've done this year. But we're excited because here's what we're going to be doing next. I hope he takes that tone. But why else would he do this kind of like
why else would you schedule it? Yeah.
In a future, unless he's much more optimistic. So that changed my mind a little bit. Maybe we'll see a optimistic Elon. And then finally, you have this thing, Tesla supply chain in increasing firmer control given this backdrop. Tell us about why that's important.
Tesla has by Gartner. Gartner is one of the best rating firms and consulting firms out there on supply chain, and kind of they're connected in all industries. They do a top 25. They do a top 50 supply chain view every year, and Tesla's ranked number 14. There's no other auto suppliers 1 to 13. Tesla's ranked number 14, so the highest rated auto supplier. I believe the next auto supplier was Toyota. It was in the 40s. And then there's no one else. There's no GM or Ford in the top 50, no Volkswagen in the top 50, no Chinese auto manufacturers, by the way, as well. So they've already, by these rating firms, what are these rating firms looking at? We can even do a show on this, Herbert, where I kind of walk through this. But they're looking at supply chain resiliency. They're looking at their ability to control their cost structure, inventory, and so forth. You look at the resiliency piece and what Tesla did through the pandemic. So why did I bring up this point number 6? First off, the setup was they're highly rated. Nobody talks about Tesla supply chain. It gets a 0 from the analyst. It's like it doesn't move the needle for the analysts one way or another, but they have the best supply chain in the auto industry. And so what's happening now is we're between these launches of we have the highest running car in the auto industry with the Model Y, and we're planning a vehicle, the Model compact car, that's going to be the equivalent of all of the volume in the portfolio, and then eventually probably double that. So they're basically they're turning their whole supply chain on their ear. This is why you've seen these staggered announcements for expansions and all the gigafactories. That's for that vehicle. All those services partners know that Tesla is expanding. They've got the product line. When they say they're going to do something, they generally do it, and they don't don't pull back on that. And then you have the supply base who's going to be, they're going to go from Tesla's gone up this warp speed of basically fighting for supplier attention. And now they have the number one selling vehicle in the industry. And now they're going for this vehicle that's going to be the sum of everything, maybe times two. I mean, that's going to be so meaningful for their ability to have leverage in the supply base. And it's not just price. It's all the contract terms. It's everything you have to deal with suppliers, whether it's supplier-owned inventory, whether it's indemnification, other quality items, anything, IP, everything. They're going to have leverage over their supply base, and I believe they're going to do it in a win-win approach. Tesla's not out there to crush suppliers; they're out there to lift them up and to find partners that kind of think and are like-minded, the same way that Tesla is, and I believe they want suppliers that are unconventional, that want to break out of that mold. If some of the GM Ford suppliers want to really break out of that mold and kind of do the 24/7 kind of work schedule and partner with Tesla. Point is they're going to have unbelievable leverage in the supply chain industry, and they're going to be able to get, I believe, best in class pricing, and they're going to have best in class availability. When Tesla puts an order in, Tesla gets priority. So they're going to have supply continuity. They're going to have probably best in class pricing. They are going to have best in class pricing. They're going to have the best inventory terms. They're going to have just best overall terms, and that's going to put them in a position to win in the industry. The rest are going to be in this mode of are you really doing EV or not, GM or Ford? You gave us a demand signal. Are you doing it or not? So why I put number 6 up is Tesla's supply chain gets a 0 from the analyst. I believe it's one of the most important things. I believe over time, this is going to be supply chains, fighting supply chains as, EV growth and that adoption curve trips over 20%, 25%, 30% globally. You're going to have this supply chains going back and forth and battling each other for supply, inventory, for cost, for you name it. And Tesla's putting themselves, in a wonderful, and putting their suppliers, quite frankly, in a wonderful position to succeed. So I believe the Tesla supply chain is going to really exert itself leaving 2024. And you're going to really see that. Where will you see that impact as an investor? In COGS and supply availability of their products. I think those are the 2 areas you'll see that as an investor, which will convert to gross margin and revenue.
Yeah. I mean, Tesla has been very vocal that cost is their number one thing that they continue to focus on. 10,000 parts. If I can just even reduce it by $1 or a few cents, it makes all the difference. And so this is where that will show up. And every year it just gets better and better because of volume, because of their focus. So thank you so much. Folks, we have here a manufacturing expert, a factory expert, a supply chain expert, a quality expert. And what we just reviewed today, masterclass in terms of expectations for inventory, vehicle deliveries for this year, FSD and how it might roll out. You got the Cybertruck expectations, the compact car design lock, and then things about supply chain. And of course, the tone needs to change in order for all of this to even, to see anything improve. Thank you so much, Jeff. That was fantastic. Appreciate you going through your thoughts and some points there that no one else has been saying, but you do. So we'll see how this rolls out for 2024. Thanks, everybody. Follow Jeff on X at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Robert.
Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.